to welcome you all to this third session. We're in the middle of this training program, which is our free training series on international trade for global companies. As you know, this program is organized by the IDB, Connect Americas, and the International Chamber of Commerce. And throughout this week, each session will cover key topics that global companies need to understand in order to enter or expand into international markets. For those who are not yet familiar with Connect Americas is a free B2B business platform launched in 2014 by the IDB in partnership with Google, MasterCard, Zealand, Meta, and DHL. And our mission is to help small and medium-sized enterprises grow and expand their businesses and investment opportunities, both locally and also internationally. We provide training, support companies on their internationalization journey, connect them with clients and suppliers abroad. We offer information on financing options and a lot more activities. So today we have over 750,000 users on the platform. So if you are not yet a user of Connect Americas, I would like to invite you to join us at connectamericas.com. It's absolutely completely free. If you have any questions about Connect Americas, about the SMExport week, or if you would like to stay connected, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn using the QR code that is displayed on the screen. And as we go through today's session, I would like to encourage all of you to share your favorite moments, key insights, or memorable quotes on social media. Your takeaways can help inspire others and keep the conversation going even beyond this session. So don't forget to tag Connect Americas, the International Chamber of Commerce, and the hashtag SMExport Week. We will be featuring some of your posts, so this will help you connect also with other participants. And now we will soon begin with today's session, but first I would like to explain briefly the format. We will begin with the presentation by our speaker, followed by a Q&A session at the very end. So if you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A button that is at the bottom of the Zoom window, so we can address them later. Additionally, remember that participants who attend at least 80% of the whole week are eligible to request a certificate of participation at the end of the week. So if you are unable to join a live session, you arrive late, or you need to leave early, don't worry, we are recording all the sessions and we are sending every day all the recordings to your emails. So you can also watch the recording and that will also count towards the certificate requirements. So now, let's get started with today's session. That's about certificate of origin as passports to global markets. So during this session, we will explore how certificates of origin can unlock trade benefits, reduce cost, and streamline export. We will learn also how to navigate the certification process, leverage trade agreement, and so on. So it will be leading this session, Martin van der Weide. He's the chair of the ICC World Chambers Federation International Certificate of Origin Council and policy advisor on origin at the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce. Martin is also a member of the International Certificate of Origin Accreditation Committee. The accreditation chain affirms that chambers are mutually responsible and globally interconnected, assuring businesses, traders, bank, and customs administration that COs are issued in accordance with international best practices. Martin, it's a real pleasure and honor to have you here, you sharing some of your expertise and knowledge. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luciano. I will share my my screen and let's get it in. Is it in full mode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Good morning, good evening, good night to you all. It's my pleasure to talk about 40 minutes about origin. My name is Martin van der Weide. I'm working for the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce. We issue preferential and non-preferential certificates of origin for our exporters in the Netherlands. Just to give you an impression, we issue about 700,000 documents a year. That's an average of 3,000 documents a day. I always say my life is simple. I talk about origin the whole day, and I do that for the past 25 years at the chamber. It's really an interesting topic, and you might be aware of everything that's going on in the world. You see origin popping up in the news every day. Beside my work for the Netherlands Chamber as policy advisor on origin, I'm also the chair of the International Chambers of Commerce Certificate of Origin Council. Especially in a digital world, it's really important for us as issuing organizations that we are working together, because we are all working with digital systems for certificates of origin, and that's why we do have this International CO Council. Before we enter the certificate of origin and how you can apply and what is needed to apply for a certificate of origin, I like to start a little bit with the beginning. We are talking here about free trade agreements. So there are two types of certificates of origin: the non-preferential certificate of origin that can be issued to every destination in the world. But today we're talking about preferential certificates of origin. That is a certificate of origin that is connected to a free trade agreement. And a free trade agreement, that is a formal agreement between two or more countries to promote trade and to eliminate barriers for the flow of goods and investments between them. I will explain what the benefits are for an exporter and an importer of a free trade agreement. But what's really important within a free trade agreement, and there are plenty of free trade agreements in the world, is that they are working with a set of rules and regulations. And these regulations are the rules of origin within a free trade agreement. That's why you are applying for a certificate of origin, to confirm that the origin is connected to that certain free trade agreement. And in the end, you pay less import duties if everything is going well and you applied for your certificate of origin and the certificate was accepted in the country of destination. So there are a lot of free trade agreements, and the only thing you're doing with a certificate of origin is paying less or zero import duties. You claim preference. When you're exporting to a certain country, you pay import duties, or at least in the importing country, the importer is paying import duties. But if you as an exporter can hand over a preferential certificate of origin, most of the time the importer will pay less or even zero import duties. And that's really interesting for you to doing trade with each other. And that's the whole idea between a free trade agreement: paying less or zero import duties because two or more countries want to do trade with each other. Let's take the Netherlands with Mexico, for example. There is a free trade agreement between the European Union and Mexico. In other words, the European Union and Mexico wants to be friends and they want to promote trade. How can we do that to eliminate import duties? But we are friends, the European Union and Mexico, we do have this free trade agreement. So when goods are coming in from Mexico to the European Union, we say, okay, we are friends with Mexico, but we need to make sure that the products are of Mexican origin, because that's the friendship we are having within the free trade agreement. And to check if the products indeed do have the Mexican origin, rules of origin are embedded inside the free trade agreement. Without rules of origin, how can you check if in this situation the products are of Mexican origin? I do trainings on preferential origin for other chambers of commerce or for other organizations, and we talk a week about origin. I can talk a month about origin. But the first thing we do is always asking, okay, can you come up with a better solution in a free trade agreement than rules of origin? But no one can. It's a logical instrument to have in a free trade agreement. Otherwise, you cannot check if the products are of Mexican origin. Also, do not make the mistake that origin is not the same as shipped from. Take this example, a pineapple grown in Costa Rica, then shipped to the USA, and from the USA it's exported to Canada. The origin is still Costa Rica. It will not change because the pineapple in the USA, nobody did any processing with the pineapple. It's just shipped from the USA, but the origin is still Costa Rica. And with preferential origin, we're talking about origin, and that's really important. So to me, it's a logical set of instruments within a free trade agreement. It's not always simple, these rules of origin. There are many free trade agreements worldwide. I try to check the exact number, but that's quite difficult. It's something between 400 and 600 free trade agreements in the world. The interesting part is that it's sometimes overlapping. So you can have two countries that are having a free trade agreement, but you can also have a group of countries with one single country or with another group of countries that is having a free trade agreement. And sometimes the same countries are in different free trade agreements with different rules of origin. What we call that is the spaghetti ball of origin, and that can be really complex because it might overlap. Don't worry, for most of you who are doing trade, are starting to do trade with other countries, and you want to benefit from a free trade agreement, it's just a single free trade agreement that you're dealing with. And if you're lucky, you don't have a lot of different products that you're dealing with. So you're also dealing with a single origin rule. I will explain that a little bit later. But origin is really complex. And with all the free trade agreements in the world, it's very complex these days. Different rules of origin in different free trade agreements. That makes sense. Let's go back to the European Union and Mexico. We want to be friends with each other, and we say, okay, we want to check if the product is really of European origin or of Mexican origin. For that, we invented rules of origin. Okay, that's one set we're having in the free trade agreement between the European Union and Mexico. But then the European Union is having a free trade agreement with Switzerland. And the European Union is having a free trade agreement with the UK. The European Union is having a free trade agreement with Canada. And within all these free trade agreements, the rules of origin are not the same. And that's really important to know and to notice that every free trade agreement has its own set of rules of origin. In the end, both the exporter and the importer will benefit from a free trade agreement. If in the importing country, the import duties are 0 or less than normal, it's easier for an importer to import these products from a country with a free trade agreement. And also for the exporter, it's opening a new market to do trade with. Why do these rules of origin differ in the free trade agreements? Now, take an example, European Union, Norway and coffee, European Union, Panama and coffee. I don't know what you know about coffee, but it's not grown in the European Union and it's not grown in Norway. So you can imagine that the rules of origin in that free trade agreement for coffee are quite simple. In a free trade agreement between the European Union and Panama, it might be a different situation, because Panama might say, yeah, all right, I want to be friends with the European Union, and I want to lower the import duties on coffee. But in Panama, I have my own coffee industry as well. So to avoid that all kinds of coffee coming from the European Union into Panama for lower import duties, Panama might say, yeah, I want to protect my own companies. I want to protect my own coffee industry. I want to have a bit more strict rules of origin to make it more complex for exporters to export coffee to Panama. It's still possible, but it's a bit more strict. And that's how it's working within the free trade agreements. We want to be friends with each other, but on the other hand, you want to protect your own industry as well. And it's always finding a balance in a free trade agreement, what's working for the exporting and for the importing country. And in the end, we end up with a rule of origin that might work for both of us. Because the rules of origin are not the same in every free trade agreement, again, origin can be very complex. How can you take advantage of a free trade agreement? So the first step of my presentation was, okay, there's a free trade agreement, you pay less import duties, there we are working with rules of origin. But now I'm coming to you as an exporter or an importer. How can you make benefit of a free trade agreement? What we see often is the utilization rate. And the utilization rate is saying how many exporters or how many export or import shipments are making benefit of a free trade agreement. So let's focus on you as an exporter and an importer. How can you make advantage of a free trade agreement? First of all, the first step you need to do is to check in the importing countries what is the import duty anyway. That's the first step. If the import duty is already 0, and that's possible in certain countries, stop right there. Because if it's 0, it's not bringing any money to the importer or to you. It will not be lower than 0, and you're not getting additional money if you are below 0. So working with the preferential certificate of origin will only work when there is a benefit for the importer and the exporter. That means lowering the import duties. If it's 0, or if it's not changing, I can give you another example. For example, beer to Egypt, not the most favorite product in Egypt. Import duties are more than 1,000%. And even with the preferential certificate of origin, it will still be the same import duties. It will not be less. So if there is no benefit, stop right there. The other thing you really need to check is what is the value of your shipment. If it's a small shipment, for example, 200 American dollars, is the work that you need to do to figure out how it's working with the rule of origin and applying for a certificate of origin really giving you the benefit that you need. If the import duties are 10%, and with the preferential certificate of origin, it's 0, you're still talking about 20 American dollars. So I'm not sure if the work that you need to do to check if the product is qualifying for the preferential agreement and applying for a certificate of origin is in balance with the $20 discount that you're getting on the import duties. On the other hand, if your shipment is 20,000 American dollars and it's still 10%, and with the preferential certificate of origin it's going to 0, yeah, that's a serious benefit for your importer, but also for you as an exporter. But this is always, I say, this is the first step. What's the benefit that the importer will get by paying less import duties? That was the first step. Then you need to go to the second step, and that is figure out what is the rule of origin for your product. I think we have quite a lot of participants. You are dealing with many products, and they are all classified in a harmonized system. If you're exporting already, you are familiar with that. But every product worldwide has a unique code, and you can find that in the harmonized system. In my example, for example, 1006 is rice. That's everywhere in the world. If you talk about rice, it's 1006. We can go to a 6-digit code of the harmonized system. Then it's 1006-30. Semi-mild, wholly mild, rice, whether or not polished or glazed. So you see, every product there's a code for in the harmonized system, so that we're not having a discussion, is it rice, yes or no. It's clearly what the harmonized code is. In preferential free trade agreements, we're working with list rules. That means that every product in the harmonized system has its own rule of origin. Yeah. Going back to the coffee, where in my example, European Union, Norway, European Union, Panama, we're going to the harmonized system code for coffee. Then we're going to the free trade agreement, and we were finding the rule of origin that is matching your coffee, your product. And again, the rule of origin will not be the same in both free trade agreements that I explained. When the harmonized system code is clear, then it's important you go to the free trade agreement. And in the free trade agreement, we can find out what the list rule is. And there are more or less 3 different rules of origin in general. The first one is change of tariff classification. Sounds a bit complex perhaps, but what does it mean? If you have a final product, let's take a soup. The harmonized system code is 2104. Yeah, okay. You're an exporter. You're exporting soup to a country where you do have a free trade agreement, and there is really a benefit because with a certificate of origin, you're paying less import duties. When the rule is change of tariff classification, you need to know what are the ingredients that you are using. In this case, let's make it a really simple soup, not too complex. You have water in it, you have tomatoes in it, and salt. The harmonized system code for water is 2201. For a tomato, it's 0702, and for salt, it's 2501. If you compare that to the harmonized system code of the final product, 2104, you will see they all change. They all change. No one has 2104. That's why a change of tariff classification is making sense. It's really showing that you are producing a new product. And that's what we want in the free trade agreement. Yeah, European Union, Mexico, we want to be friends, but only for European Union and Mexican products. So you really need to produce a new product. And that's what you're doing, because all the three ingredients by itself, it's not a soup, not at all. So you're really producing something new. And that's what you have with tariff classification. A second example, Mexico, European Union. Mexico is the exporter, and he's buying soup in a large quantity. And what he's doing, he's making small containers out of that large quantity, but he's not preparing the soup himself. When he's buying the soup already that he's buying has the harmonized system code 2104. So that's the same example, that's the same harmonized code as the final product. There is no change of tariff classification. It has not to be a problem when he's buying that soup in Mexico, but when he was buying that soup in Costa Rica, it's not qualifying for origin because there is no change for tariff classification. The soup was bought in Costa Rica, and Costa Rica is not a part of that free trade agreement, so it's not qualifying for preferential origin, and a preferential certificate of origin is not possible. The second rule that you find a lot in free trade agreements is the added value rule. Yeah. Also making sense when you're producing something. When you're producing a car, for example, in the European Union, it will never be 100% European Union origin, because your steel might come from the USA, some parts might come from Korea, so it never will reach 100% European Union origin. Therefore, there is a rule, and it's depending on your product, where it said, okay, no more, in this example, than 40% materials of non-originating materials can be used. If you flip that around as a producer, when you're producing your product, 60% of your final product, of the X works price most of the time, has to be of European Union origin in my example. The work that you do, the labor and the profit, are already a part of the 60%. Most of the time that's not enough. So you will go to your components and check, okay, what's already having the European Union origin? Can I prove that? And if you can prove it, you can add it up to your labor and profit as long as you reach this 60%. If you're not able to reach the 60% originating materials, you cannot apply for a certificate of origin because your product is not meeting the origin rule. Then we have for certain products, textiles, for example, but in my example, it's a box from wood. It's not a change of tariff heading. It's not an added value, but it is a specific processing operation. In this case, it is if you are making the boxes from woods, you need to make it from boards that are not cut to size. So what you need to do, you need the boards to cut them on the right size, then you put it as a box and you're finished. So this is quite a simple rule. But for textiles, you see these processing operations quite a lot, and they are quite complex. In this case, if you're buying your boards already on the right size, and your boards do not have the origin that is needed, again, you are not qualifying for a certificate of origin and you cannot claim preferential origin. The three options, change of tariff heading, added value, are these operations. It can be a combination of it as well. So it's not that strange that you find change of tariff heading in combination with an added value rule. depending on the product and how strict the rules are to protect the own industry in a certain country. Beside the list rules, there are some processing operations that we call minimal operations. Minimal operations will not change the origin of the product. And if you see it, you can imagine why that is. If you're buying, again, European Union and Mexico. I'm now an exporter in the European Union. I want to benefit from the free trade agreement with Mexico. So I need to deliver a European Union product. But my product, I'm buying that in China. I'm bringing it in the European Union and I clean that product. You understand that cleaning, I can clean the whole day, but it will not change the origin of the product. I can do a new box, a new packaging around it. It will not change the origin of the product. Put a new sticker on it. Yeah. I think you all can imagine that these simple processing, these minimal operations are not changing the origin of the product. And that has all to do because it's Mexico and the European Union, and we really want to have one of the products that is made in these two countries to benefit from preferential treatment. All right, so first we know there is a free trade agreement. We know that the import duties will be less when we claim preference. We did our work, I told you in 10 minutes, but for you as an exporter, it's a bit more difficult. But you know that your product is meeting the origin criteria as mentioned in the free trade agreement. Then the last step is how to claim preference. There are three options. It's depending on the text of the free trade agreement. I think we have participants from all over the world. If you're located in Asia, it's often is it a preferential certificate of origin. If you're located in the European Union, but also with the new free trade agreement in Africa, it might be a certificate of origin, but self-certification is also an option. If you're located in America, self-certification is often the only option. And then we have a third one, that's importer's knowledge, as a third option that is a little bit on the rise. But it is depending on the free trade agreement that you're working with. In the free trade agreement, there is mentioned how you can claim preference. All right, first one, a preferential certificate of origin. It's an official document. And what you do, you go to the authorized body in the country of export and you apply for a certificate of origin. This is an example of a free trade agreement within the European Union. Most of these preferential certificates of origin do have the same look and feel. You go to the authorized body. Often with preferential origin, it is customs, but it can also be a chamber of commerce. In the Netherlands, we are issuing these preferential certificates of origin as a chamber, but it can also be another business organization, but it is an authorized organization by your government. If you apply, before customs is approving the document, they often need information from you. Yeah, you need to show that your product is qualifying for preferential treatment. So they need information so that customs can check on the issuing organization that your product is meeting the origin criteria. If you come to my chamber in the Netherlands, it's depending on the rule of origin, but I want to have information. How are you making your products? What are the raw ingredients that you've been using, added value. We need information before we stamp it. After the document is issued by the authorized body, it's going with the shipment to the country of import, and based on this document, the importer is paying less import duties. It is often still a paper document. I know it's 2025, so it's a bit old-fashioned paper, but that has to do with the text of the free trade agreement. A lot of the free trade agreements are old free trade agreements. And years ago, we were only talking about paper and not about digital solutions. And it's not that easy to change the text of a free trade agreement. That's why in a lot of the older free trade agreements, a certificate of origin is still a paper solution. Another option is self-certification. Maybe you've heard about the REC system, an approved exporter. What it is, you put a text on a trade document. And most often you put a text on an invoice, so we call it an invoice declaration. You as an exporter, you put a text on an invoice, so you don't need to go to an authorized body to apply for a certificate of origin. The text, and the text is a text that you can find in the free trade agreement. You put that on your invoice, and with that, you are also, the importer can claim preference and pay less import duties in the country of import. There's nothing wrong with self-certification, nothing at all. But be aware, if you're not fully aware of the rules of origin and how it's working, the risk is always there for the importer. If you have a certificate of origin, someone is looking over your shoulder, an authorized organization. If you're working with an invoice declaration and you're making a mistake, no one is looking over your shoulder. It is the importer who is claiming preference. And if the origin was not true and correct, it is the risk for the importer. So it's really important, if you work with self-certification, that you're fully aware of what you're doing. The last one, we see it nowadays a bit more in new free trade agreements, is importer's knowledge. Will it work? Yes, only when the importer and the exporter belongs to the same organization and you have full access, both the importer and the exporter, to the same information in a platform. If you're just a normal importer and an exporter, don't think about it as an importer, because you don't know what the origin is of a certain product. Don't work with it, only if you belong to the same organizations. I see a lot of issues coming around where the importer was saying, yeah, I thought the pineapples were of preferential origin, but it seems that the pineapples were not coming from that certain country, but from another country. You cannot see from the outside if a product is qualifying for the rule of origin, yes or no. Normally, you need the exporter to tell you if the information is true and correct. So, in a nutshell, there are free trade agreements. There are plenty of free trade agreements where trade can benefit. You pay less import duties. That's the main issue. Always look, what is the preference that you claim, and is it making any sense that you put all the effort in the rules of origin and applying for a certificate of origin? Rules of origin are the instrument within a free trade agreement. And I think it's completely making sense. I cannot come up with another instrument that will work. So rules of origin are the instrument within a free trade agreement. Different free trade agreements, different rules of origin. and claim preferential treatment by using a certificate of origin or self-certification. If you have a free trade agreement where you have an option for a certificate of origin or self-certification and you're not aware, go for the certificate of origin. The issuing organization can help you. And the risk is always there for the importer. If the origin claim is not correct, the importer needs to pay the import duties anyway. The only surprise is customs will not check straight away. They do that afterwards. So as an importer, you can get a surprise after a couple of months when customs is doing a check and they come to the conclusion that the origin was not true and incorrect. A lot of new free trade agreements are only working with self-certification. And there is a reason for that. If there is a mistake, as an importer, you cannot say, yeah, I have a certificate of origin. If you want to blame me, that's not possible. Go to the issuing organization in the country of export if you want to blame someone for the mistake. But if you're working with self-certification, the only one you can blame as an importer is the exporter, because the exporter made a mistake with self-certification. You, as an importer, need to pay the import duties, and you need to figure it out with the exporter if the exporter wants to take a part of it as well, because in the end he made the mistake. Don't fear of that last element. I think origin is complex, but if you know what you're doing, you really can benefit from a free trade agreement. If you're a small and medium enterprise and you think, okay, this is really complex how this is working, but you need to work with self-certification, we as the International Chambers of Commerce can help you with the complexity of origin. We can help the exporter, and by helping the exporter, we can lower the risk for the importer. And in the end, that's what we all want, a better use of a free trade agreement. Yeah, we want you as an exporter to open the markets, to open new markets where you can benefit of a free trade agreement. And we want an importer to pay less import duties. If the free trade agreement is there, make sure we can benefit from it. But rules of origin are complex. And that's why we came up with this project, the Genesis project. With the Genesis projects, the exporter, when he's not completely sure if he's doing the right thing with origin, he can go to a Chamber of Commerce. I can say we are an origin specialist in the world. Everywhere Chambers of Commerce are issuing certificates of origin. I'm doing this work for 25 years, and a lot of my colleagues in the Netherlands are working even longer in the field of origin. We know what we are talking about. This is what we do the whole day. And with the Genesis project, we can help the exporter to give a second opinion if the origin is true and correct. And by doing so, there's less risk for the importer, because the importer knows, okay, an organization with knowledge about origin has also checked this origin statement by self-certification, and they also agree that the origin is true and correct. We do this in the Netherlands for 20 euros, so it's not really bringing a lot of money to the chamber, but we really find it important that we can help exporters who do not understand the complexity of origin. So here you have some chambers, countries that are connected to this project. We are rolling it out step by step. Sometimes we need to train a chamber when they're only dealing with non-preferential origin, but we're rolling it out step by step. If you have any questions, please reach out to the International Chamber of Commerce and we can help you with that. Not always can combine you with Genesis because it's not in every country, but we can help you with your origin questions and maybe direct you in the right direction. This is how the platform is looking. So again, it's available in some countries in the world, not in all countries yet, but we like to help small and medium enterprises with this project. Last one, to repeat what I said a bit at the beginning, what I was talking about the past 40 minutes is about preferential origin. Free trade agreements, less import duties. If you're an exporter, you might face non-preferential as well, non-preferential certificates of origin. There is often the Chamber of Commerce who is issuing these non-preferential certificates of origin, and often they are not working with list rules. They are working with wholly obtained and less substantial transformation. In a lot of countries, these non-preferential certificates of origin are 100% digital. Just to make the separation between the two origin topics that you can deal with, that you most likely will deal with as an exporter, as an importer. But the past 40 minutes were about preferential origin. What we do as ICC, beside the project on preferential origin to help small and medium enterprises, we are having a quality label, we are having a single verification website, helping chambers to make sure that we're all working according to the same guidelines and the same principles. So whenever, if you are located as an exporter in Africa, in Europe, in the Americas, it doesn't matter when you're applying for a non-preferential certificate of origin, more and less you will see the same information and the chamber is asking the same issue. If some of you might think it's always complex to apply for a certificate of origin, my Chamber of Commerce is asking a lot of information. We do that for a reason, because if we are stamping documents, we need to be convinced that the origin is true and correct. If you expect me as a Chamber of Commerce to believe you, what we call in the Netherlands, on your blue eyes and nothing else, we are blind stamping these documents and my stamp has no added value for anyone in the world. Go for self-certification. So that's the reason why both preferential and non-preferential issuing organizations are asking information if the origin is true and correct. This quality label, I will finish, 31 countries connected, 8.5 million documents already each year having this quality label. And I'd like to thank you for your attention. I can talk a week about origin, no problem at all, but I will stop right here and hand over to you, Luciano.
Sure, Martin, thank you so much. It was an impressive presentation. I can see a lot of reactions there coming from the bottom of the Zoom window, a lot of hearts, claps, and happy faces. So I would like to extend all the thanks that they are writing there on the Q&A option. And indeed, we have a couple of questions. One that I saw repeated here on the Q&A section. It's about, as you know, we have a wide range of industries represented here in the audience. So a lot of them are service providers. So a lot of them are asking whether all the free trade agreement benefits apply also to services, to the internationalization or export of services, and if the same exact rules that you explained apply to them.
No, services might be connected to a free trade agreement, but they are not connected to rules of origin. So rules of origin are connected to a shipment of goods that you're exporting from the exporting country to the importing country. One that might be in between is software. Software is sometimes an element of a product, and that can be sometimes a discussion point, what will be the origin of the software. but that's a bit complex. But normally services, no. Products, yes.
Perfect. And here, maybe this is good for clarification because there are some questions about different users. We have here one from Joseph and another one from Fausto asking about different industries like product industries. For example, all these also apply to non-food products, or Fausto is asking about all these also apply for industrial electronic equipment.
Yeah. So if you have a free trade agreement, take European Union and Mexico, for every product, starting with chapter 01, live animals, to chapter 95, I believe it are toys, something like that. Every product is within the free trade agreement, and for every product, there is a rule of origin. But again, for every product, your starting point is how low will the import duties will be when you are using a certificate of origin. That's the starting point. And then for every product, there is a list rule. Doesn't matter, electronic, food, everything.
Right, recommendation. And here, another question from Federico Marucco. He's asking if the labor cost of assembling a product is considered for the calculation of the percentage of value added.
Yeah, that's correct. In my example of the added value, I said 60% has to be, it can be 50, 60, 70, depending how strict the rule is, but let's say 60. 60% needs to be of origin materials, and within that it's your labor and it's your profit as well. Assembly was on my other list of minimal operations. If it's really a simple assembly, it's not changing the origin of the product. So you can have a simple assembly and making a lot of product, but because of it's a simple assembly, it might not meet the origin criteria. But it's really hard to find a definition what is simple and what's not simple anymore.
And here, Donna Luisa is asking a really good question. If all the changes in tariff or percentage of value added or the amendments or updates, if they are published in any site or updated in real time where they can check, like in the automated system for custom data, the ACCUDA system, where can they check all these updates?
It depends where you are located on the world, where you can check it. The International Trade Center has a great tool, the Origin Facilitator. With the Origin Facilitator, you can find a free trade agreement, you can find the text of the free trade agreement. If you're located in the European Union, there's, for example, access to markets. That's even a bit further. You can do some kind of a self-assessment and you can see the difference between the free trade agreements. But I always say, so it's depending where you are in the world where you can find it. But finding it is not the same as understanding it. You might think that you understand the rule of origin, but often, I said in the beginning, we are issuing 3,000 certificates a day. We are rejecting more than 10% a day, so 300 a day. Not because we are not liking our exporters, but it is because they are making origin mistakes. Finding the rule is not the same as understanding it and doing the right thing.
And here's another really interesting question that has been repeated a lot. Where can I find the list of free trade agreements, just to be sure that my country has a free trade agreement in force with my destination market? Do you recommend any specific tool or site?
Yeah, again, I think the International Trade Center, where you go to the Origin Facilitator, And in the origin facilitate, you can check the free trade agreements, and then you select as an exporter. You type your own country, and then you will see directly all the free trade agreements that are in place for your country. So I think that's a good tool to find them.
Great. And I have some great news because we will have two representatives of the ITC on our last session on Friday. So there will be some colleagues from the ITC leading their session. So just don't miss out the presentation that we will have on Friday. So in the interest of time, I have a few announcements to make. But first, I would like to thank you, Martin, for your excellent, great presentation. It was really clear and straightforward. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with all of us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to be in your session. Thank you.
Thanks. So we are wrapping up now today's session. So I will quickly share my screen while all these claps and hearts appear there again. Again, before we go, I have a few announcements to make. First, for those who joined late or would like to revisit today's session or all the other sessions that we had this week, you can access the recording by scanning the QR code, or you can also go directly to the site where we upload all of the videos and all of the resources that each speaker shared with us. So of course you won't find this recording right now, but we will be uploading it in the next couple of hours. And also we will be sending it to your emails, to all of you. So just be sure to check your email later today. So now I have really exciting news for all of you. You are the very first one to be aware of this. Not even my colleagues knows about this announcement. So this is just a gift for your loyalty to the SMExport Week. We have a new course that is related to the topics of the SMExport Week. So I would like to pre-launch our brand new course that is, again, as you know, everything that we do, it's 100% free. And it's about exporting to Latin America and the Caribbean, strategies and opportunities for global companies. So this course was developed by the IDB through Connect Americas, and it's designed to help global companies, wherever you are, to navigate and succeed in the Latin American and Caribbean markets. The best part, as I said, it's that it's completely free. It's 100% asynchronous, so you can just take it, make it at your own pace, anytime, anywhere. So it has 3 modules. The first one about understanding the Latin American market landscape. Then the second one, it's adapting and positioning your offering to Latin America. And the last one, it's about establishing a competitive edge and the use of digital tools to succeed in the Latin American market. So upon completion, you will receive a certificate of participation. So don't miss this opportunity to be among the first one to access this valuable training. We haven't launched this course yet. It's already available. You can access it right now in the link that we just dropped in the chat. And you are the very first one to know about this new course that we have. So I'm excited that you can access this information. As we explain every day, we created a company directory because we know that you wanted to connect with all the other participants. As you told us in previous training programs. So we created this company directory for you to connect with all of them, learn about their businesses, explore potential collaboration, whether you are actively looking for clients or suppliers or partners. So I would like to invite you all to join our participant company directory. If you haven't shared your details yet, you can do so by scanning the QR code that you are seeing right now on the screen, or we also put in the link on the chat so you can just leave your information there. And one important thing to know is that you need to have a company profile in Connect Americas to be able to be part of this company directory. And if you want to know all the firms that are already there, there are a lot of people that are actually even looking for a specific supplier. So you can get a new client, just check all the firms that are already registered there, which are their businesses about, which are their needs that they have. So you can also access right now, and we will sell this information by email as well. Again, I said that there is a lot of companies looking for suppliers, so you can get a new client. in this QR code, you will see a list of active purchasing needs. There are people looking for food products, services, electric equipment, even juices, fruits, vegetables. So if you want to get new clients all around the world, you can just start supplying these companies worldwide. And lastly, if you don't want to miss anything that is happening on Connect Americas, you can join our WhatsApp channels. Here is the one in Spanish, and we also have the one in English. Again, we are just dropping all the links on the chat for you. And that will be it for today. If you have any questions, again, about Connect Americas, about the ITV, about everything that I just explained, or all the benefits of the SMExport week, you can get in contact with me just by scanning the QR code on the screen. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope to see you all tomorrow in our great presentation that it will be about digital tools, led by our Google coach, Roberto, that you met on the first session on Monday. So I hope to see you all tomorrow again. Have a great day.